Now, as I understand your testimony, Dr. Welcher, you believe that it's possible that the Lexus taillight could have caused these wounds to Mr. O'Keefe's right arm. Is that correct?
Correct.
And more specifically, it's your belief that the lacerations would have been caused by the vehicle scratching Mr. O'Keefe's arm as it drives past him. Is that correct?
I don't know, I'd characterize it that way. What happens is, you know, this 6,000-pound vehicle is coming and he's standing on a, you know, icy, snowy roadway area, and it's going to contact him and move his whole body and induce rotation.
Right. So it's going to contact him and, under your theory, induce rotation. So wouldn't such a movement of the car relative to his right arm result in horizontal injuries to Mr. O'Keefe's arm, as can be seen on his bicep above the elbow?
So could we pull up one of my slides to address this issue?
Sir,
I'd like to answer your question with a slide that I have that addresses this exact point.
I'd like to stay with this slide, Dr. Welcher, and see if you can answer my questions off of this slide. So I'll repeat it.
Sure.
Do you agree that the injuries up at the upper part, where you're familiar with the bicep brachialis?
I am.
And aren't those two up at the top, right over the bicep brachialis?
They're actually about midway between the biceps and the triceps.
Right. So you know which two I'm talking about, the two up there. Can you just use your laser pointer just so we're talking about the same two? Do you have one?
I'll give it a try, but the upper ones...
I know it's not your fault, but
on the
sometimes it
image,
doesn't
the
show.
upper left. I mean,
Yes.
technically, the ones right to the right of that are also on the biceps and triceps.
Right, but
the
I'm talking
biceps goes all the way to the elbow, so do the triceps.
Right, so I'm talking about the two that are the farthest up.
Correct.
All right, would you agree that those are in a horizontal orientation?
Generally, yes, which is what you'd expect with your arm like this and the tail light coming across like this, which is what I showed in my slides.
My questions are trying to keep this moving. I just asked if those are in a horizontal orientation.
Yeah,
Yes
more
or
or
no?
less. They're angled down slightly, but more or less horizontal.
Okay. Isn't it true that if Mr. O'Keefe's arm were to be flexed like it was with the test subject in your blue paint test, the lacerations on Mr. O'Keefe's forearm would be oriented in a vertical direction?
Absolutely not. If you pull up my slide 117, it'll show exactly that it is like perfectly horizontal. When you're standing like this, and this is the tail light, the laceration, when it comes across here and pushes my body, it's going to make a horizontal laceration because the 6,000-pound vehicle is going to push me out of the way. As this pushes me out of the way, it's going to drag and create a horizontal laceration across my arm. This is exactly what you'd expect.
So let's talk about the forearm, sir. We may have miscommunicated. I'm talking about the lacerations on Mr. O'Keefe's forearm now.
So we're switching from the arm to the forearm.
Correct.
Gotcha.
Wouldn't those be oriented in a vertical direction?
No. Again, you have the vehicle, if this is me and this is the car, it's pushing and pushing across like this. And with your arm bent like this, it's going to cause laceration as it pushes my arm away. It pushes like that.
Okay, I got
it. My slide shows this quite clearly.
So you disagree, you do not agree that the injuries to Mr. O'Keefe's forearm under your theory would be oriented in a vertical. You disagree with that. It's just want to get that on the record.
I disagree with that.
Okay. Now, also, do you understand that under your theory of injury here, that there would be injuries caused in two different directions by the same movement of the car. Agree or disagree?
I'm going to say I disagree. You need to give me a little more. You're going to have, again, this is a glancing or a clipping type impact. And so it's going to be it's going to sweep across the arm, which is what causes the horizontal lacerations.
We're talking about a flat surface, right, sir?
Approximately, yes.
And therefore, you would have to maintain contact with the arm as the car moves. Am I correct about that?
Maintain contact with the arm? I'm unclear what you mean.
What I'm trying to do, sir, is to get under your theory, right, given the contact that you've described, what would you expect to be the orientation of the wounds to the upper part of the arm and to the lower part of the arm?
Just like it's shown in this photograph.
Okay. Isn't it the case with your theory that the tail light would have to break, and after the break, the arm would have to maintain contact with the arm as the car moves?
So that is what happens in pedestrian contacts. There is a contact duration. For example, you asked me earlier in that calculation you had me ran, you said 0.01 seconds. That was the contact duration. So when you have things like this, and that's why you have to allow, if you do testing, the body to move, because the car is going to hit the body, it's going to cause it to move, the body's going to rotate away, and the car is going to continue on in that clipping type impact. So the arm is definitely in contact with the rear of the car for some time.
That's what I wanted to get to, is simply that under your theory, the taillight would break, and also the arm would need to maintain contact with the taillight area as the car moves. Is that your supposition?
So at a point in time, it'll stop contact, but the 6,000-pound vehicle is going to want to continue moving on. It's going to push. It's going to initially contact the arm and then push the arm away as it rotates the body. So yes, it's going to maintain contact until the clipping is over and the vehicle continues on.
So my next question is simply, how long do you believe the arm needs to maintain contact with the taillight after, under your theory, it breaks, to produce those types of wounds that you say came from a taillight?
We don't have enough information to determine that.
Right. You don't have enough information to make that determination, do you, sir?
Correct.
And
but we know because of the laws of physics that it has to be some amount of time. It doesn't occur instantaneously.
so now we do apply the laws of physics to the right arm that weren't applied before because you applied a paint experiment. Is that correct? You're now applying the laws of physics to the injury to the right arm. But you didn't
No.
do that in your report.
Nope, always applied the laws of physics. The paint experiment, as you're referring to it, was to look at basically the orientation of the scratches that matched this. So that was an engineering experiment to correlate height, position of the taillights relative to height, orientation of the lacerations on Mr. O'Keefe's arm.
You just said, sir, if I heard you correctly, you, to answer my previous question, applied the laws of physics. That's what you just said, correct?
So the laws of physics cover more than Newton's second law. There's a whole law of physics. The whole field of physics is a broad subject. So a simple measurement of height is a physical measurement.
Sir, I have your entire report in my hand, right here. Where in the report do you apply the law of physics to the right arm of Mr. O'Keefe? Where?
So in the paint experiment we did, the laws of physics about gravity, orientation, things like that, I didn't apply Newton's second law as we already went through. But again, those simple positions, arm angles, the possible physical arm angles, those are all generally governed by the laws of physics. The laws of physics are very broad.
Sir, I'll ask it this way. Where in your 14-page report do you even mention the laws of physics related to the right arm of Mr. O'Keefe?
So in terms of applying the laws of physics.
I'm not asking applying, just where in the report is it mentioned law of physics relative to the right arm? Can you point me
I
to
don't know
where?
that I would write a report that said these are the laws of physics. I would say these are the numbers, but for example, the timing in GPS, how a clock times, the concept of a second, what does that mean? Those are all concepts of physics. So the timing, the GPS, the mileage, how we calculate the mileage, those are all based on the laws of physics.
I'm talking about injuries to the right arm.
That's not what you asked. You asked me about my whole report.
Sir, if you could, please, I just need to finish my question. Where in your report do you use any laws of physics in connection with injuries to the right arm of Mr. O'Keefe? Can you point me to a word or a page in your report?
Yes.
Where?
2A. 2A Roman numeral 1. 2A Roman numeral 2. 2A Roman numeral 3, 2A Roman numeral number 4, 2A Roman numeral number 5.
Sir, I followed all of it, but what I'm asking about is where in all of what you just mentioned is the word right arm? I'll take what you just said. Where in 2A and all of those is the word right arm? Where is it?
Oh, sorry, it's in number 3.
So let's go to 3. You state the location and orientation of the laceration on John O'Keefe's right forearm and right arm are consistent with the geometry and orientation of the right tail light of the Reed 2021 Lexus LX 570. Where?
Can you read the next sentence?
I'm sorry. Is it see PowerPoint slides 102, 120, correct?
Correct.
All right. I want to just start with the report. Did you apply any force analysis to support 3?
So in terms of the force analysis, I did not do an F equal MA analysis, but in terms of, say, the contact pattern, I obviously had to apply some force, even at 2 miles an hour, to do that.
So the answer is, what you cited, number 3, you did not use a force analysis, correct?
So force was applied to my arm in the paint test. I didn't do an F equals MA force analysis.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
So now let's go to the horizontal movement we were talking about with regard to the car. And you can agree or disagree.
Sorry, the picture's on.
I'm sorry, we'll take that down. Do you agree or disagree that given a horizontal movement of the car, vertical lacerations would be an inconsistent injury pattern?
So horizontal motion generally will cause a horizontal laceration. You can get what are called stellate, which are a blunt force, and it causes a splitting of the skin as well. But generally, when the vehicle is clipping or running horizontal across it, it will generally cause horizontal lacerations. But when you have a fractured taillight, you can get pieces going off in other directions. So it's not necessarily going to be perfectly horizontal.
So my question is, not with clipping, you keep inserting clipping into my question. My question is this. If you're given a horizontal movement of the car, do you agree that it's more likely than not that vertical lacerations would be an inconsistent injury pattern?
I'm trying to help you, but you got to give me more. So, like, is it a clipping contact or is it not a clipping contact? Is it a direct in the center of the car impact?
Okay, are there only two variables you need to answer the question?
But this is a good start.
All right, so let me do it this way. You can't answer the question on a general basis of whether there's horizontal movement of a car, whether vertical lacerations would be an inconsistent injury pattern. You can't answer that question without more information. Is that your answer?
So generally, again, horizontal motion should cause horizontal lacerations, but again, it depends on what's being hit.
Okay.
So for example, if I have something that bends as a result of the impact, it could bend up and create a vertical laceration.
So you would agree, based upon what you said, that generally horizontal movement of a car would be expected to cause horizontal lacerations.
Generally.
Okay.
Yes.
Now, during your blue paint test, the blue paint was featured more predominantly on your upper arm than your forearm. Is that correct?
I think it depends on the tests.
Do you want? We bring up a slide. Will that
I'd
help
love
you?
to bring up a slide.
We're going to be running the thing, so we'll just bring one up, and you tell me whether this slide works for you, sir.
Do you want me to tell you the slide I want?
If we could take a shot at it first, and then we may ask you for it. But I think we've got a slide for you. And what number?
Dr. Welcher,
111 is on the screen, sir.
Thank you, Your Honor.
Is the blue paint more predominantly on your upper arm than your forearm? Is there more blue paint on your upper arm than your forearm?
Probably. This is the one where I actually walked sideways into the back of the car. The one where the car's moving is probably a little better representation.
Sir, I'm just asking you a question about this slide. If
Okay,
you could just focus on this slide here, and if you can't answer it, so be it.
I just answered it.
Is the blue paint featured more predominantly on your upper arm than your forearm?
It sort of looks like it. I didn't actually measure the total area of it.
Alrighty. So on direct, you stated that in order for the injuries on Mr. O'Keefe's forearm to have been caused by an impact with the taillight, his arm would have needed to be held outstretched as you did in your demonstration, correct?
You would need some degree of outstretch, yes.
Yes. So isn't that an example of confirmation bias?
No, that's matching the contact pattern to the injuries.
But don't you have to select among other choices this outstretching of the arm? You had to make that selection from among others, correct?
So that was matching the physical evidence on his arm to the physical evidence on the car, and then running a test to see if dynamically those matched up. So it's, I didn't have it hit the exhaust pipe, for example, because there was no assertion it hit the exhaust pipe. There was no damage to the exhaust pipe. So it was based upon the evidence, and the testing was done to test, to use your vernacular, the hypothesis that that's where it came from.
Sir, have I ever asked you anything about a tailpipe in any of my questions today?
Yes.
I have not. I've never
Yes,
asked.
you have. You asked me about the totality of the rear of the Lexus, which includes the tailpipe.
All right. I am not going to be asking any questions that involve the taillight in any fashion. So what I'd like to do is to go back to the question that I'm asking, which is, did you consider as part of the scientific method in terms of more than one hypothesis, did you consider in your analysis any other orientation of Mr. O'Keefe other than the one you selected for your paint test?
Yes.
And where is that consideration of other hypotheses stated in any report?
It's not. I was just looking at the damage that was up on the sheet metal.